Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of Cutter One. I am your host, Just Jay, your resident troublemaker, resident culture warrior. I hope you are all doing absolutely amazing as we hit the middle of the week, hump day, if you will. And yeah, I mean, hopefully we can just all coast on into that weekend and enjoy ourselves, right? And life will get easier and more awesome and stuff like that. And for those of you who may be in the sort of central and northwest of the United States and stuff like that, please stay safe. I know you guys are getting slammed with like a buttload of snow, like blizzard conditions and stuff like that, all up and down like the northeast section of the United States right now. So stay indoors. From what I understand, it's going to be like really like travel is going to come to like almost a standstill. So stay indoors, stay safe. Keep your loved ones safe, and just ride out the storm, man. Like make like a party out of it, if you will. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when we get like severe snow here in my section in the northeast of the United States, my wife and I, we'll stock up, make sure we got plenty of snacks and food and stuff like that, and feel good foods, and yeah, and then we'll just like kick back and like ride it out, you know what I mean, and watch movies and hang out and talk and play board games and so on and so forth and stuff like that. So yeah, so keep safe, avoid traveling apparently if you can at all. Keep your loved ones close and ride it out and make the most of it. Have that like like almost like snow day, picnic day, if you will, indoors, with your family and stuff like that, and make the most of it and use the time and have a good time and make some memories. Anyway, enough about that whole shenanigans with the weather. All right, I wanted to get into this article with you guys because it sort of shows you the end game, right? That we're talking about here. So let me just jump right over to it real quick. Okay, and this is coming to us from Fox News. Okay, now I know not everybody, we all line up differently on the political spectrum, and that's fine. I'm not sort of speaking to the left or right or trying to categorize anybody and stuff like that. I'm just talking as Tolkien fans, as fans of high fantasy and good writing and stuff like that. This, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum and regardless of whether it's coming from Fox News or not, should scare the ever-living shit out of you. Okay, let's get right into it. Woke bullies rewrite Willy Wonka book and will censor every bit of history and literature if we let them. Okay, and this was written by Douglas McKinnon. Authors' works like James and the Giant Peach, Willy Wonka book get sliced and diced by woke censors. As headlined in Fox News over the weekend, Roald Dahl children's books rewritten to delete references to fat characters, add inclusive gender terms. As the old horror movie tagline once said, if this doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight. Make no mistake, woke censors, activists, and anarchists have united as one to censor, twist, or outright ban representations of our history, our heroes, our literature, and our very liberty. Speaking of books, with regard to this type of censorship, often employed by totalitarian leaders or regimes, we have this chilling warning from George Orwell's 1984, published back in 1949. Quote, every record has been destroyed or falsified, every book rewritten, every picture has been repainted, every statue and street building has been renamed, every date has been altered. Even the process of continuing the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right, unquote. Back to our present here in 2023. While not every record has been destroyed, not every book rewritten, not every statue, street, and building renamed, not every date altered, the far left woke army is picking off more and more with each passing day. Roald Dahl's beloved children's books such as Matilda, James and the Giant Peach, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory being but the latest examples. As was reported, Puffin, the publisher for Dahl's classic works, has hired, quote, sensitivity readers to make changes to certain portions of the author's wording in the UK editions. And by changes, They mean the inclusion of gender neutral language, the exclusions of words their sensitivity readers deem offensive, and the outright altering of the author's intent. As Dahl passed away over 30 years ago, this alarming censorship of his work brings an entirely new meaning to the words ghost written. Now, in James and the Giant Peach, the character of Miss Sponge is no longer described as the fat one. Miss Spider's head is not black anymore, and the earthworm has given up his lovely pink skin for lovely smooth skin. Staying with that classic book, Dahl's cloud men are now cloud people. Likewise, the Oompa Loompas in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, described by Dahl as small men, are now known in the rewritten books as small people. Interestingly, but not surprisingly enough, in Matilda, the 8 nutty little idiots was changed to, quote, 8 nutty little boys. Apparently, the sensitivity readers used by the publisher had no problem replacing the word idiots with boys. In defending what many to most will clearly view as identity politics, woke censorship, the Roald Dahl story rationalized in part. The current review began in 2020, before Dahl was acquired by Netflix. It was led by Puffin and Roald Dahl Story Company together. The current review began in 2020 before Dahl was acquired by Netflix. It was led by Puffin and Roald Dahl Story Company. Okay, that they just repeated. I don't know what was going on there. I wonder if that Inclusive Minds firm employs conservatives, people of traditional faith, or hires based only upon qualifications rather than checking the latest woke box. No matter, as the woke left has come to dominate what I call the 5 major megaphones of our nation, the media, academia, entertainment, science, and medicine, this type of draconian censorship, rewriting of literature, rewriting of our history, and smearing those many of us consider to be heroes will go on unabated unless we finally say enough is enough. For my part, I screamed enough is enough in July 2022 with the publication of my book, The 56 Liberty Lessons from Those Who Risked All to Sign the Declaration of Independence, before they and the 4th of July are banned. I wrote that book in defense of those men precisely because the calls from the woke left to literally ban the 4th of July while smearing the names and reputations of our founding fathers were getting louder and louder. As they did, one question filled my mind. What if they are successful? Well, guess what? Little by little, day by day, they are not only becoming more successful, but more emboldened. Like schoolyard bullies, unless challenged or confronted, they will not stop. Which hero of yours, which book you love, which statue you admire, which painting that speaks to you, which date you revere, and which liberty you most cherish will soon be taken from you by these woke censors, activists, and anarchists. All right, and that's the article. Now, let me say this right out of the gate. Politics aside. I'm putting politics aside. I'm not blaming the left or the right. I'm not arguing for conservatives or against conservatives. I just want to be clear with you all, okay? Let's keep it focused. Stay focused, people. Stay focused, right? This is about Tolkien fans and fans of fantasy literature, okay? And what this story, how this story impacts us, right? So, the short version, at least for me, is if they can do that to Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, James and the Giant Peach, and stuff like that, there is nothing stopping them from doing that to Tolkien, right? From doing that to Tolkien, from changing, the writers of Rohan being referenced as strong men and changing that to strong people. Right? And essentially rewriting in a censorious way, okay, in order to bring Tolkien's work up to modern sensibility standards, right? There's nothing stopping them from doing that. As fans of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and James and the Giant Peach and Matilda are finding out. The other problem that I have with this, not only are you going to go back and essentially change the content of, say, Tolkien, But the other problem I have with it is who decides? Who decides? As that article pointed out, the same readers that were saying, "Oh no, you can't refer to the Oompa Loompas as little orange men. You have to refer to them as little orange people to be more inclusive." Those same people, in their own mental biases, okay, thought, "Well, we can change 8 nutty little idiots to 8 nutty little boys." I mean, literally, if you're a parent and you have a small son or a daughter, um, or if you just have common sense, that's got to be offensive to you. So the people that are making these changes to Roald Dahl's works in order to bring them up to the standards of modern 2020 sensibilities, right, have absolutely no problem equating your sons, your brothers, your husbands, your cousins, okay, your nephews, with the word idiots, okay? And that is allowed to be put into the publication. But referring to the Oompa Loompas as little orange men, not inclusive enough. We need to change that to little orange people. Right? And so what you have is you have the situation where not only do they have the ability to now go back and rewrite your favorite books, okay? They can change the content of those favorite books. They can change the meanings of those favorite books, and they are absolutely unaccountable and do not have to adhere to any standard when doing it. In other words, you can change the word men to people to be more inclusive, but you can also, without having to explain, change the word idiot to boys because their own personal views are that men are idiots, obviously, okay? They have a problem with males, okay? Because if you equate boys with idiots just on the whole as a generalization, then you've got the problem, okay? The problem is you, okay? And that goes for any time you make the generalized, sweeping statements like all women this, all men that, all black people this, all white people that. Anytime you do that, immediately my initial thought is you're the fucking problem. Because you're generalizing, and generalizing as a whole is not valid. From a statistical standpoint, you can sort of do that, okay? If 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Crest, okay, then you can safely assume that, those 9 dentists out of the 10 recommended that, okay? But you can't make generalized statements like, all men are idiots, and therefore you allow that to be put into the rewriting of these classic stories. And again, to keep this focused on what we talk about here, there's nothing to stop them from doing that with Tolkien, right? So Tolkien's descriptions of orcs, which has traditionally been something that certain segments have, latched onto as being problematic, right? Well, there's at this point, as long as you have the right combination of license holders involved, they can go back and rewrite that. They can go back and edit it, okay, and change it, and literally change Tolkien's work, just like they're doing to Roald Dahl, right? So I don't want the comment section to devolve into like political debates, right? This isn't a left, right, conservative, liberal, even though the article went that way, right? I'm not going that way. To me, this isn't about what part of the political spectrum you're on and or anything like that. For me, this is about we are literally living in an age where it is considered the norm. It is nobody bats an eye when you literally are going back and changing classic books to fit modern political sensibilities. Okay? And nobody's saying anything. That should frighten the living shit out of anybody who's ever read a book. Okay? Because that means that, I'll tell you right now, for those of you, and it's the majority of you guys, for those of you who have your copies of Silmarillion and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and stuff like that, hang on to that shit. Hang on to that shit, because 10 years from now, you could be the owner of one of the last remaining copies of the original versions, right? Same thing like we saw with Star Wars. I happen to be one of those people that I had the original Star Wars, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. I got them on VHS when they were finally released in the late 80s on VHS tape, and you could finally buy them on VHS tapes. And I did, and I held on to them for years. And then when the technology came about in the mid 90s, I digitally transferred all those VHS tapes, right? And to now, fast forward to today, I'm one of the few people that can still watch Han shoot first, right? Or still sees the original guy who played Darth Vader slash Anakin, see his ghost pop up next to Yoda and Obi-Wan at the end of Return of the Jedi, and not Hayden Christensen, right? And that was just by chance, because at the time we didn't know that George Lucas would go back and change and change and change and change, right? Well, we're starting to see that now with literature, right? You're seeing books being edited to comply with modern sensibilities. And literally, in some cases, the entire context and meaning of what the author was trying to imply is being changed, right? So, again, not a political issue, but more of a, what the actual fuck do you think you're doing? Like, you know what I mean? You're going back and you're changing books, and trust me, they will do it to Tolkien. I promise you. We already saw Amazon slightly do that. They didn't change the context of the books, but if you remember in the lead up to Rings of Power, Amazon suddenly changed the covers of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit books to comply with the marketing for the Rings of Power show, right? The ones with all the hands and they're holding swords or holding an apple or, scratching or whatever the F they're doing, right? They tried to sell like the Lord of the Rings trilogy of books, but with the Rings of Power cover and the Hobbit cover. And you can still go on Amazon right now and find it if you have any doubts about that. So what I'm saying is this should scare us all. This should scare anybody who is a fan of literature and good writing and books. The fact that this can happen, and it literally flew under the radar. Like, you don't see very many people talking about it. Nobody's, kicking up a storm about this having been done to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or, Matilda, or James and the Giant Peach, right? And so is it going to be silence when they come for Tolkien, when they come for C.S. Lewis, right? For when they come for all the great writers? Are we going to sit back silently? I, for one, am not, but that we all know that already. So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I just thought that this was something you guys should be aware of. Like, I'm not like a conspiracy theorist when I say, like, I do this because I know that they're marching towards being able to replace things, right? They are, okay? And you can see it. If you pay attention and you look, you will see it. Roald Dahl fans have learned that lesson the hard way, okay? All it takes is the licenses to these things to get into the wrong hands. And this is what happens. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. If you like the video, like the video. If you feel like sharing the video, by all means do so. It helps us get seen, and it helps us with the YouTube algorithm. And also, if you have not subscribed, I would hope that you would consider giving the channel your subscription. It would help us out a lot. It helps out the army of beautiful badasses as we hold the line and protect the professor and his works. And if you are a returning subscriber, as always, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for being in the fight and staying in the fight. All right, guys, I look forward to some interesting comments down in the comment section below. I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, be good, be awesome, be safe, but more importantly, stay more dorkish. Peace.